Welcome, guys, to another beautiful episode on the podcast. Episode 45 of Cup of News.
Damn, 45.
I'm pumped for this one.
Damn, it's 5 more away from 50.
5 away from 50.
Almost halfway to 100. And a quarter of the way to 200, you know?
Yeah, man, we're just trucking away. If you guys find any value in this podcast, please give us a review, follow, share. We appreciate it. Big news, 4:30. Write that date down, put it in your Google Calendar, put the reminders on your phones. We have an announcement coming up. We're super stoked about it. We've been working on it for quite some time, so it's going to be excited to finally get this out.
Yeah, we're not going to tell you guys the names or any kind of, secret information, but it's going to be something pretty cool, something that Matt and I and most of our friends kind of follow into, and we fall into that kind of category because we just like making people healthy. We like helping people through struggles. We just like helping to make the world a better place.
And that's what the world needs.
And it starts with each one of us, right? You can't have like a change in the world without somebody moving forward, right? So you can't have a giant movement or a giant shift in like consciousness or like living or life or like ego or anything like that without just having one person started, right? So this begins with one. You don't understand how powerful you are as a human being just because, you say you're one person and there's, according to Google, there's 3 billion people in the world?
Yeah, and we make ourselves feel small sometimes, and we don't realize that, all the battles are within, and the mind is literally infinite.
You don't understand how strong you are, how powerful you are, just being yourself, and go far away.
On that note, let's start the show, right? So on this episode, we're going to talk about a study from the University of California. They actually finally found the molecular mechanism of how green tea, black tea actually helps reduce your blood pressure and, a reduction in hypertension. And we'll also talk about a national study that's linking a health decline in Generation X and Generation Y.
The tea phenomenon is pretty interesting because we've always known that tea has these blood pressure lowering capabilities. And one study I looked at, and it's actually cool because Matt actually found a study that shows what part of the tea actually causes these hypotensive mechanisms, right? If you located it, because a lot of these studies, they link tea with decreases in certain things like blood pressure, but a lot of these studies don't say what directly causes this.
Yeah, what's the molecular mechanism,
right?
Right?
It just says that some part of the tea that we're not sure about causes these things. And one study that I actually looked at, and it was a summary of human interventions as well as animal studies. And a lot of these studies show that tea, the underlying mechanisms of tea are shown to relax smooth muscle contractions, decrease endothelial nitric oxide synthase, reduce vascular inflammation, inhibit renin activity, and antivascular oxidative stress. And that's pretty interesting. But a lot of these studies that I looked at show these same links with these benefits of tea, but they just say that some metabolite in tea causes this. But it's actually pretty cool that we're starting to realize what causes this, and maybe in the future we could just identify this metabolite or identify this mechanism and actually just kind of single it out and maybe even base a medication off that.
Right.
Instead of using like typical pharmaceuticals where we just kind of blend the chemicals together and kind of figure out if it works or not.
Yeah, and now my question is whether if this is a natural form of medicine, which it will be, can it be sold? Can it be patented? Or will it just be a product to the world for free? I mean, nothing's for free, right?
Right. I don't think you could patent it because you can't patent tea. You could patent certain types of tea, but you can't patent all tea, right? Because I could buy a tea seeds and I could grow my own tea, right? It's not patented. But what people would do is they single out what mechanism does it, and they add another mechanism to it, and then they make it their own.
Yeah, so they got to almost make it somewhat artificial, so you can't say it's naturally derived.
Exactly, yeah. And then you can put a patent on it because technically it's your creation, even though this mechanism is available for everybody. You added your own take on it, or you added your own process or capsules or mechanism of it entering your body, and then you could put a patent on that or a way to enhance it. Like all these pre-workouts have like these patented formulas, which basically is just caffeine and whatever else they add to the formula, right?
Yeah, that's really caffeine is the main ingredient, like always.
Exactly,
it's a universal thing. And it's beautiful because tea has been around for over 4,000 years, started in China, and tea is one of the most common consumed beverages worldwide, second to water. And up to 2 billion cups of tea are drunk each day. That's a lot, man.
A fun fact, Poland's ranked number 10 in the world in tea consumption. So let's go to Poland.
And it's kind of funny because it makes complete sense because tea has been such a staple in our life. Like we wake up in the morning, our parents will have tea with breakfast, midnight's, late night dinner snack or something with like some sandwiches. Tea's always involved. They're always reading the newspaper. So it's funny how, we're stereotyping, but it correlates to the results of being top 10.
Right. Or somebody comes over, you want tea or coffee? That's basically the two staples of basically of. I'm pretty sure Polish people drink more tea and coffee than they do water.
Yeah, man, it's Polish hospitality. Yeah. Like when they don't even offer water to, they either offer, just like you said, tea or coffee. Yeah. When it comes to the leaves, so this is how the study kind of started. So there's a species of leaves called Camellia sinensis, and they're used to make the most caffeinated teas from plants. And based on the study, they took University of California. They took it directly from Trader Joe's, that specific green tea. If you want to look into like the differences between tea, there's green, oolong, and black, and it all depends on how long you're fermenting the leaves. You could either have unfermented tea, partially fermented, and fully fermented, and that all impacts the characteristics and properties and flavors of the tea. Fun fact, right? Mm-hmm. So how did they actually start? So the results, let me go into here. So the results basically said that there's two compounds, catechins, type flavonoids compounds, which are found in tea. I'm not going to go into the full name because it's epigallocatechin-3-galligate. If you want to find out exactly what it is, check out our show notes on cupofnurses.com. And what these chemicals, this protein, it's called KCNQ5. So what this protein does, it actually acts as an ion channel protein. And it allows potassium ions to diffuse out of the cells to reduce cellular excitability. Mm-hmm. So KCNQ5 is found in the smooth muscle lines of every blood vessel, and tea actually activates those catechins, which actually is predicted to relax the blood vessels. The way they did this study, they found computer modeling, mutagenesis studies, and they were looking at how the catechins bind to the foot of the voltage sensor. Because remember, we're all voltage, we're all like, there's ions, there's particles, there's, chemistry classes like come into mind right now. So the voltage sensor is part of the KCNQ5 that allows this channel to open, and it responds to cellular excitation. So what happens is the binding allows the channel to open easily, and it helps with smooth muscle relaxation.
Yeah, it's cool that you brought up the flavonoids, because the first time I ever heard of flavonoids was basically with Dr. David Sinclair, the anti-aging doctor that works at Harvard. And I forgot what his direct stance was on it, but I remember him saying that basically like the antioxidants aren't as effective as you might think they are, just because they're still not sure on how effective they actually are. So it seems like the research is still on the fence. And flavonoids, those are the main ones that Matt's talking about that are in green tea, in black tea, and all the teas that help lower blood pressure, right? So when people argue, are these flavonoids, do they have any kind of potential, or they actually do anything? We see these studies like the one Matt presented, and it shows that, hey, green tea lowered blood pressure. So these flavonoids have to have some kind of an effect on our body. And just out of curiosity, I looked at what flavonoids are like a few seconds ago, and just what we said, they're antioxidants. So they help regulate cellular activity and fight off free radicals that cause oxidative stress. And oxidative stress has been associated to hypertension, strokes, to just an unhealthy lifestyle that cause more stress in your body. They're also responsible for like allergens, germ formation, toxins, things like that. So, as we're still on the fence as a society about these effects of these antioxidants, like, the research they come out that, hey, maybe there is some validity around it. And maybe future down the line, you might say, hey, maybe we could kind of figure out how to strengthen these antioxidants and make them like superfoods, and maybe it could, fight off more so than we think that it can. Yeah. But they're still on the fence about it. But the thing is, like, these antioxidants, they're found in healthier foods, right? They're found in healthy foods. Like, you don't have processed foods having these flavonoids or these antioxidants, right? So there's some kind of a power in these antioxidants. Even though the research doesn't always suggest it, there's a reason why an apple is healthier for you than, like processed food, like an apple flavored granola bar or something, yes. Right? Because they have these natural compounds, and if you can figure out what they are and isolate them, that's going to make us healthier as humans in the future.
Yeah, it's all about being conscious and aware of what those food groups are, right? And how to consume them, maybe the times, what's healthy for them. And that's why, we're also passionate about everything that we're starting. We're trying to help people just become better humans. And it all starts from within, just like we always talk about. It's not rocket science.
Right. And even on heart.org, if go on Google like heart.org and tea being associated with a lower in blood pressure, it tells you there's a cardiologist that says he recommends three drinks for people. First one's water, then tea, then coffee. But of course, you want those all without sugar, because then if you start adding things like if you're going from a plain green tea or a plain black tea, and then you're adding sugar and flavoring to it, that completely deters the health benefits of tea, right? Because then instead of those benefits of decreasing the oxidative stress, decreasing the inflammation, guess what? You're introducing sugar into your body or whatever other chemicals you are with the flavorings, and that completely changes the whole mechanism of action and what it does. Because we're not saying that if you drink tea, you're going to have a lower blood pressure. We're not saying that at all. We're saying that tea has a potential to lower your blood pressure, and it's one of those things that you should be introducing into your diet if you have hypertension, along with other things that should help you lower it, right? Because one cup of tea, I looked online, it only theoretically lowers your systolic by like 2.2, 2.2, which isn't very much.
Milligrams of mercury.
And your diastolic by 0.9. So it's not very much, but the whole concept is if you drink this tea and you eat healthy and do other things, it's compound interest, right? The more compound interest you have, the better you are in the long run, right? Same with foods. The more compounded nutritional benefit you have and proteins and these antioxidants, these flavonoids and all that, the better you are in the long term.
Yeah, you make a very good point, because yes, you could be drinking green tea to lower it, but if you're consuming it with 1 tablespoon of sugar, which is causing systemic inflammation in your vasculature, which is contributing to coronary artery disease, you're not really helping yourself out by really having that cup of tea. You might as well just have just a cup of water and not having that freaking tablespoon of sugar, because it's causing more good than bad. Same thing about holistic medicine and precision medicine, right? Like, yes, you're going to have 1 cup of green tea, but mentally, if you still get fixated on small things and have that victim mentality, and you walk by, or somebody honked, somebody honked behind you to go on the green light, and that person pissed you off, that probably raises your blood pressure so much more, and that freaking 4 cups of green tea won't even help. So it all comes down to everything at the end of the day, not just one thing.
Matt and I really want 2 things, or actually one main thing from everybody that listens to us, is just to be a more conscious human being, right? And that's going to flood into being more conscious mentally, which you're going to think more clearly, you're going to understand what you like, you're going to understand your flaws and how to work on your flaws, and how certain changes or the way you incorporate certain things or certain changes into your life, you're going to be able to figure out how that impacts you, and if it's positive or negative, right? Because every time we change, we expect a positive outcome, right? But it's not always the case. So part of being conscious is understanding that, hey, I know this worked for somebody else, but doesn't necessarily work for me. That's a whole other thing of being conscious too, especially with like mental thinking and meditation and all like these people you see online with these lectures. And the other concept that we target too with consciousness is also being conscious of with what you put in your body, because that plays just as important a role as the thoughts you have in your body, right? Because you're built up of what you consume. And if you consume shit, guess what? You're going to have a shit life and a shit lifestyle and a shit body and a shit mind.
And just like I talked about with the last cup of news, based on the 5 senses, right? Mm-hmm. Not only about what you consume, what you see, what you feel, all that stuff is affecting you. And for this study, like, hypertension affects 1/3 of the world population. So it is considered like one of the most modifiable risk factors for global cardiovascular disease, premature mortality. So hypertension not only causes strokes, it has other things that are freaking constantly, it's affecting a lot of things. And that's why we need to bring this into awareness, to modify it when it comes to foods and everything that we're doing, lifestyle. As you guys know, we always preach about that. One last thing about this study, other than controlling vascular tone, KNQ5, that mechanism of action, is actually expressed in different parts of the brain that has to do with regulating electrical activity and signaling between neurons. So what they're thinking in the future is there's a gene variant that exists that actually impairs channel function, not being able to do its cause, which actually creates epileptic encephalopathy. So that's a developmental disorder that leads to frequent seizures. Mm-hmm. So they're thinking that because catechins crosses a blood-brain barrier, they're going to be able to discover maybe that you could activate the KNCQ5 like protein ion that may suggest that you could basically improve these channels, and you'll improve brain excitability disorders, just so you don't get into the active seizures.
Yeah, and that's cool because I feel like the next step in our future and in genetics and in health is for sure brain health. And I think that's why mental health is such a prominent thing we see online now and on the news, right? We see this giant push for good mental health. We started seeing this push mental health maybe like years ago, where they started to classify different psychoactive issues in more distinct categories, right? It wasn't just schizophrenia. It was like, now you have bipolar, and now you have all these different levels of autism and all that. So we slowly see a push. And why we're seeing that is because as humans, we learn in simple terms. We go from the easiest thing to learn to the hardest, right? So we start off with like skin, we kind of know how our skin works, and then we move to our organs, then we move to our heart, because a heart is a very complex organ. But if you think about it, it's theoretically just really a pump, right? It's a pump and a muscle, right?
As I explained to my patients.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a lot easier to understand that, right? A pumping mechanism where, your heart contracts and it pushes blood to your body, then it relaxes and it fills up. That's simple to learn and to explain, and kind of concept to grasp compared to the brain, where you have neurons making electronical connections, right? You're going from, let's say, a plumber and plumbing for the heart into like engineering, which is brain, which is circuits, right?
Like neuroplasticity, all that stuff is like,
right?
We haven't grasped it.
Correct. So we had a plumbing years and years and years before we had computers, right? Because it's an easier concept to grasp. Same way we know about the heart a lot more than we know about the brain. Why? Because heart's an easier concept to grasp, right? And technically, if we don't know about the heart, we can't really learn about the brain, right? Because the heart delivers blood to the brain. So there's like steps to this, and we're slowly moving into the age of like the brain, you could say. You have Elon Musk trying to make Neuralink, which is basically brain connections, and people are predicting that how they have this. I don't want to go into aliens, but how when you have right, but how you have this typical alien figure, which is big brain, small mouth, big eyes, small nose, small ears, and they don't really a small body, right? And they don't really talk, right? Because they don't communicate with words; they communicate with their minds, right? So that's kind of what this push might be. Then again, who knows? We were promised flying cars years ago, right? There's supposed to be the age of flying cars, and we still haven't perfected that.
After 2020?
Or whenever they said, like in general, like
we're still waiting for it to happen.
Right. When you're a little kid, you're like, yeah, when I grew up, there's going to be flying cars. No, I mean, there hasn't been any flying cars, because we know that it's very hard to do, and we don't really need to do it.
Yeah. Plus, like, before that even happens, we're going to get some unmanned drones, like delivering Amazon packages first, and a bunch of armed drones surveilling us, like as civilians instead of like police officers. That's probably going to be the next push before we even get flying cars, you know?
Never know.
Damn, man. That's actually a very good concept you brought up. And I was going to say something else, but lost my thought there. So,
not bad.
No, man, you said some good stuff. You actually made a lot of great correlations, which makes sense.
That's the way I do things, Ben. That's why I live my life. Well, correlation doesn't mean causation. Or is it causation doesn't mean correlation? Either way, you guys know what I'm saying. If you guys don't know, look it up. It's not as smart.
I said you're smart. You should have just not say anything, and then you said some shit, and now you sound a little bit stupid.
Yeah, I know, that's what I'm saying. It's okay.
You even out the playing field, bro.
It's a balance. I'm just as equal as anybody else listening.
Exactly.
I know some shit about certain topics. I don't know shit about other topics, and life moves on. If I want to learn about it, I learn about it. If I don't, then I don't. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. So next topic of discussion is health declining in Generation X, Generation Y, and national studies showing this. Surprise, surprise, our health is declining. And it's kind of like mind-blowing, because we have to ask ourselves these questions is like, how come this is happening? Because the generations are seeing a decline in health compared to your parents and grandparents. If they were the same age, they would be a lot healthier compared to you. So like, what's going on in our... And, those that are longtime listeners, you already guys could probably pinpoint what we're going to just say, like we already know it's like the standard lifestyle changes that are all affecting this, So these generations are comparing that they show poor physical health, higher levels of unhealthy behavior such as alcohol, use of smoking, more depression, and anxiety. And if you're wondering what's Generation X, what's Generation Y, You basically got 1965 to 1980, that's Generation X, and then Generation Y, or aka Millennials, 1981 to 1996. So you got, I'm trying to think. So everybody from 50 all the way up to almost like 25. You are in this age group if you're listening. So Mr. Hu Zhang conducted a study from student in sociology in Ohio State, published it just last month in the American Journal of Epidemiology. And good results here just to get the study because they used the National Health and Nutrition Survey from 1988 to 2016 with 62,000 positive respondents, and the National Health Interview Survey from 1997 to 2018 with over 620,000 respondents. So we have a lot of numbers here. And the way they kind of judged this physical health, their criteria, these researchers used 8 markers based on metabolic syndrome, a constellation of risk factors that have to do with heart disease, stroke, kidney disease, and diabetes. And also they took markers such as waist circumference, blood pressure, cholesterol levels, and then body mass index. And of course, they use one other marker such as chronic inflammation, which is a huge thing that we are experiencing now in America, low urinary albumin. And I didn't understand that why they were using this. I looked up some research, and low urine albumin has to do with basically kidney health. The lower it is, the more prone you are to developing kidney disease. And also they checked renal function and creatinine clearance, which all has to do with the kidneys.
Interesting. Yeah, so I was kind of curious with this, why is there such like a decline in health? So I looked up 2 things actually. I looked up the life expectancy for people between the ages of, or not ages of, but humans between the year of 1860 and 2020. And it seems like we peaked in the US. Actually, this is in general in the world. It is the United States. In 2015, we peaked at 78.94 years. That was the average life expectancy for somebody in the United States. And that was the highest it's ever been. And in 2020, I know it's 2021, but 2020, it's about 78.81. So that's not, decline. Yeah, it's a decline, but the fact that every year moving forward, we've always been on an incline. This is the first time that we either plateaued or actually decreased, except 1920. But I'm pretty sure that there wasn't a war in 1920. Some world war going on.
What's wild, I was looking up into this too, is like the life expectancy increased like nearly 10 years over the last half a century. From 1959, it was 69.9 years. And then in 2016, it was up to 78.9 years. Yeah. And then after, like you said, 2014, around that time, that's when we started having that decline leading into 2017 and 2019, even though U.S. is spending the most of like healthcare money per capita and than any other country in the world.
And then you try to figure out like what has changed over the years, right? There has to be some kind of issue or thing or concept that's inversely proportional to life expectancy. By that, I mean something is trending up, increasing, that's causing the age expectancy to go down. That's what inverse proportional means. One thing goes up and it causes one thing to go down.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like it's wars. I don't think it's violence, right? I don't think that's the issue. It seems to me that it's decreased a bit over time. So the only thing that I see that could be causing this is going to be probably 2 things. It's either going to be exercise or diet, right? Because if you look at how our parents ate compared to how we eat, or how our parents ate compared to the typical American citizen that's in our age group, drastically different.
Oh, yeah.
All our parents' meals are cooked at home.
And soups every single day.
Yeah, and it's not processed. It's not processed food. They don't always buy like grass-fed beef or whatever, but they don't go out and buy a hamburger, right? They buy the meat and they make a hamburger themselves and then they cook it, right? So there's not much processing going on, right? Except for the way the meat's processed and the way the bun's processed. But you're not going to McDonald's where everything is completely processed and you're not even sure what you're getting, or go to a fast food joint where you're not sure what's happening or what their meat's coming from or things like that. So I think we have a lower life expectancy because I think the diet, the food that we eat, and everyone's pushing for this veganistic, this plant-based everything, and that's like even more processed.
Yeah, and how do we know that's like better? Like it's getting a lot of hype, right? There's a lot of money that's being poured into it. Yes, there's a lot of celebrities that are vouching for it. That's making it more mainstream. But is it the healthier route? we're not sure yet.
Can't say that.
There's a lot of, and that's what's also confusing too on podcasts is because you have doctors that are freaking go full meat, right? Carnivore, full vegan. It's the healthiest. And it's just like, well, what's in between? Maybe in between is the best thing. And we're still learning. And that's why, like, whoever's listening, just because somebody tells you to hop on the ketogenic diet doesn't mean it's the right fit for you. Yes, you're going to lose weight, but there's also other things that could, cause a lot of issues, like freaking flushing out your complete gut flora. Right. That's why you're going to have diarrhea,
But the main differentiation between like ketogenic, carnivore, paleo diets, those have years and years and years of like human experimentation. We see tribes that are basically always on a keto diet
or paleo
or just carnivore. We still or even plant-based, right? We do see those too. But the fact of the matter is you're not really eating fully plant-based if you're eating a vegan burger with a bunch of oils in it, with a bunch of different kind of corn, wheat, peas, or whatever, and you're mashing it up together, mixing it with artificial flavorings and then all that. That's not really being plant-based.
To make it look like meat.
Yeah. And then first of all, how are you going to say that it's healthier when this is the first fucking time you're introducing this to the market? How are you going to tell me it's healthier and not show me any kind of longitudinal results saying how it affects humans over time?
Yep.
So you can't say it's healthier. It's impossible for you to argue that's healthier just because it doesn't have, just because it's made up from different kind of chemicals as meat or as other foods or as fats. You're still, because technically all food's chemicals, right? It's what it naturally is. It gets broken down to your body and turns into a chemical, and then we reuse it, right? So you can't say that's healthier than meat and certain things that have been around for years and years and years, and humans have learned to eat these over years and years and years. Now you introduce this plant-based patty that you're saying is healthier to me. And you're telling me, oh, because the research shows that it doesn't increase your cholesterol, doesn't increase this, doesn't increase that, and it lowers this. I'm like, okay, those studies have majority been done in short-term wise because we haven't been eating this shit for hundreds and hundreds of years.
Yeah, not only that, but who's funding the scientists, right? Because if you're funding the scientists, they're going to basically promote your truth. And we did a couple episodes again regarding the industrial seed oils. Like, they're proven, canola, all that soybean oil shit, like, it's proven to increase obesity more than high fructose corn syrup. So, I mean, it's all in the pudding, guys. It's all in the pudding.
That's why that's what kind of upsets me a little bit about like these people that are fully plant-based and eat these like processed plant-based foods, and they try to shove their theory down their mouth and say, hey, you're wrong. It's just like, no, I'm not wrong. You're not wrong either. But I'm just saying, if you're gonna just look at straight facts and research, you don't have much facts research to back you up, right? Compared to somebody that's gonna argue a carnivore diet or a keto diet because they have years and years of experience of people eating this, right? Yeah, so don't push facts on me and say these studies, because there's a lot more studies about non-plant-based than there is plant-based.
Yeah, and that also goes to the fact that like these people are living in echo chambers on social media, and they keep getting reintroduced the information of plant-based, and it keeps reinforcing their truth. But that doesn't mean necessarily it's the end-all, be-all truth. But social media enforces your truth, and that's the echo chamber. Yeah.
And then I understand that people are like, oh, we don't want to kill animals. We don't want to do this. We don't want to do that. Well, technically, you're killing plants too. They just happen to not have a brain. They have a different, structure than humans or other animals. But that just separates like, animals from plants and the whole the breakdown of different biological creatures, right?
Yeah.
Right. Like octopuses don't have brains, or some seafood don't have. Some fish don't have brains, or some kind of seafood, or some ocean-bearing creatures don't have brains. Does that make them okay to eat? Technically, they don't have a brain. So it's just like yeah, there's the thing of we should not harm any animals, or we shouldn't hurt them. But it's just like if you look at nature,
we're all from one source.
Right.
We're all, so I'm sorry to cut you off because I love this topic right here. Is like, yes, everything is either, if it's an animal or a plant, it's still coming from the same divine source. It's all coming from this consciousness that's on this earth, right? It's given to us. So, as a human, you're deciding what's right from wrong. But in nature, there is no right from wrong. It's just there to be used for humans, for everybody on this earth, right? Yeah. And that's how ecosystems are created, or ecosystems. I should say ecosystems.
Yeah. And it's like some people might feel bad because the cow can smile. They could you could almost
play with the ball.
Yeah, play with the ball and have these kind of human tendencies, you could say, but I mean, they're all mammals, so we're all gonna have the same tendencies, right? So I guess people take it a lot more personally when you're able to conceptualize a cow having human tendencies, right? And then you feel bad for eating it because it's almost like, oh, it's almost like me, and how would I feel if other humans are being eaten?
Yeah,
You know, but you can't think about that because the world's like a dog eat dog world. Because then you're just picking things to fit your ideology in a sense,
do you
right?
see what
Because
you
then
just said there? Dog eat dog world.
yeah,
The reason why we don't understand that is because, like, let's just say 2 centuries ago, hunter gatherers. Let's just take it back, right? They didn't have time for psychological dicking around. Let's just say that they were hunter and gatherers. Everything was all physical. Are you going to survive? Are you going to eat? Where are you going to live? Where are you going to sleep? Right? We figured all that out. Physically, we're freaking blessed. We should be grateful as humans. So now, humans always like to look for problems. Everything's all psychological now. And that's where everything that's coming from is like, oh, what's that? That's good. People are not too sensitive because their brains have nothing else to worry about when it comes to those basic necessities. And then we're just stuck in our heads in a way. That's just my
so it
theory.
stems back into like how we moved into like the brain generation.
Yeah.
Like it's all that, and yeah, it's pretty. I mean, if studies come out when I'm 50 years old and studies come out that say, hey, it shows that eating everything plant-based is healthier than eating meat, then maybe I'll consider removing meat on my diet.
Right.
But right now, meat has not done anything negative to me. That I feel like, I mean, I feel great. You know, I think I look pretty decent, and there's no reason for me to stop eating the diet that I'm eating, just because some people say that plant-based is beneficial. And same way, if you feel great on a plant-based diet and all that, and you think you could survive on that, and you think you're getting everything that your body needs, then go for it.
Do it. It's all about precision nutrition.
Right. But if you're feeling like shit on this plant-based diet, and only thing that's going for you is because you don't want to, eat that cow because it has feelings, then you're probably living life wrong. Because if you're going to say a cow has feelings, then how the hell do you know a flower doesn't have feelings? You don't know how a flower lives. Just because you can relate to a cow because guess what, you're both mammals, doesn't mean that a plant can't feel pain. Doesn't mean a flower can't feel certain emotions, right?
Yeah,
and how do you even know a cow feels emotions? Because it's a brain? No, maybe the cow feels emotions is because it realized that, hey, the cows that are more emotional tend to survive longer, and just be Darwinism, right? Maybe the more emotional cows survive because then you could, it could shed a tear, and then you personalize that cow into yourself, and maybe that's another survival mechanism that they fucking created. You never fucking know.
It's like bacteria that developed CRISPR,
Right.
and that's their mechanism
Yeah.
of protecting itself in their environment.
Yeah, so you're basically saying a cow's life is more important than a flower's life, which then again goes against your ethical dilemma of, all animals are kind of one of us and part of us. Because if you believe that animals are all part of us and we're all one with animals, well, then aren't we also one with plants as well, right? Because you use them from one. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of where the ethical thing comes from. And yeah,
I was also going to bounce back into like this whole thing of like, we need enough research and stop shoving your own truth into like my mouth in a way. I mean, I don't want to bring up this topic, but this is what's happening with like the whole like vaccine thing, bro. It's like a couple studies came out. Hey, this works. The media shoving it in your throat, and now everybody has to get it. And if you don't, there's this polarized society that makes you look like you're freaking crazy or something, or you're not being, you're not caring about other humans.
Right.
But anyways, I don't want to bring that up because we're past that shit. If you guys want to listen to vaccine talk, a couple episodes down.
I'll hit us up personally.
Yeah, or hit us up personally if you guys want to know more. When it comes to like the whole health decline, so I took some notes down. I was just trying to figure out why American health is declining. So 1980 was this turnaround time in our country. That's when the opioid pandemic started. The shrinking of the middle class and the widening gap of income inequality. So, maybe health is declining because there's a lack of support for struggling families, We're always trying to freaking, like, that's like the topic of conversation all the time in like low income families. Is like, well, we can't do that because that's not enough money and stuff like that. What if that's the stresses, And then in the study that we talked about, the main things are drug overdoses, suicides, alcohol-related illnesses, and obesity are largely to blame for.
Yeah, that's crazy, dude. Because if you think about it, during wartime, I'm not saying finances aren't always important, but during wartime, you're not really fixated on your finances. You're more fixated on kind of like fear of what's going to happen in the future. So you're not focused as much on how much money should I spend? Can I afford this? You're more focused on what's going to happen, a year from now or a few months from now. So you might spend a little bit more today than tomorrow just because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, you
Yeah.
know? And with the
I might
whole,
argue that a little bit because technically COVID was a war in a way, but it was a war that was fought differently. It was microbial. And in that war, we were locked down and we were worried about finances because jobs were closed and people are out of jobs and they have to hop on unemployment and stuff like that.
yeah, but during wartime, you don't have the issue with lack of jobs. You have an issue with lack of humans,
Yeah,
right?
because
Because if you're going into World
technically
War,
the industry increases.
yeah,
Yes.
because if you're going to World War, you're going to need to, provide food for the soldiers, provide weapons. So that increases jobs. That's actually people probably make more money during wars than, during peaceful times. Because actually the government could probably take advantage of both situations. They could be like, hey, we got to pay you less, but it's for a good cause. They could also pull that kind of card.
Yeah.
So I feel like when people are more focused on the future and they're not sure of their future, they might be more prone to spend a little bit more now. But like the whole alcohol thing is, I mean, like the opioid pandemic started with the Vietnam War. That's when we first realized that, hey, that's kind of the first time the US got introduced to opioids. They've been around for a very long time. Heroin's been in the US for a long time, but then we came into the Vietnam War where our soldiers were doing a lot of opioids and then they were coming home and they were trying to get more of the opioids and introducing other people to opioids. So the opioid pandemic was largely influenced by Vietnam. And you don't really see the devastative effects of certain things are negative until the future, right? Like think of tobacco smoke, like think of cigarettes, right? At one point, we always bring it up. At one point, we thought they were healthy, that they were good, but then it took years and years and years and years to realize, hey, they were causing these devastating effects on our lungs, on our kidneys, on our livers, on our lifestyle, and that's how things are. That's why when people argue, hey, this is healthier, this is more beneficial to you, it's hard for me to say, okay, it is. Because
Yeah.
if there's not years and years of research to back this up, then I can't really tell you that it's healthier. It seems healthier. It does. I'll give it a try. Maybe it'll make me feel better. Maybe it'll do what you're telling me to do. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to always do that forever and for everybody, right? And the thing is, it's like if you don't try new things, you're never gonna discover the potentials of it, right? So that's kind of how. That's why it's so important to have like choice. Like I don't want to bring up vaccines anymore, but I feel like it always gets brought up because it's a trending topic.
It is.
Or it's just like it's neither good and bad, it's neither right or wrong. It's just like a choice because if we're all pushed towards one choice, how are we going to know the true benefits of that choice if everyone's doing it?
Be a control group.
Because you don't have the other group that's not doing it. So it's like the crazy thing about it, and that's why people that push this kind of science on me that it's still really fairly new or they don't really have longitudinal studies or longevity effects. That's a word. I know longevity is a word, but I don't know about longevity. But these effects
For
of
this show, it
longevity,
is because there's a couple nurses here.
we should make up our own words. If you don't show me these effects on longevity, then I can't really 100% be on your side. It might sound like a good concept, but if it's something new, then it's still something new.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like people aren't. It's conformity, not morality, right? Morally, is this the right choice for you? I don't know. Like we have to assess this. We have to look at the studies, right? That's how we always are. It's always facts. Like we've been intermittent fasting for maybe over 5 years now, probably a lot longer because time flies by, right? We looked at a ton of research before we made a commitment to this. We know for a fact, and we hear it in multiple episodes that, hey, intermittent fasting is, decreasing insulin resistance, is helping with, autophagy and keeping you healthy, right? We made that choice. Don't shove false science into my throat without giving me the research. And like when we looked into it, whether it's vaccines or whatever it is, we saw the truth. It is what it is, but there's conformity happening, and we're just on the other side of the curve at the moment.
Yeah, intermittent fasting, it's not a new phenomenon. Just because it's trending doesn't mean it's new. Intermittent fasting goes years and
Hunter
years
and
back.
gatherers.
Yeah, hunter gatherers, and even if you look at your religious books, religious texts, Jesus fasted for 40 nights, 40 days in a desert. Muhammad fasted. Everybody fasted. All religious people fasted. For a reason. for the reason in their mind and their ideologies is to get closer to God, right? So show the benefit, But also intermittent fasting doesn't also get you closer to God. It also helps out your body, right? So it's not just like something that we just realized 5 years ago and said, hey, this is healthy because it looks healthy. No, because Matt and I have looked at studies, and these studies are years and years and years and years, over thousands of years. We've known tribes that intermittent fasted, and they were healthy and they were able to sustain life.
Yeah.
So it's not like we're looking at something that's happened 5 years ago. It's not a phenomenon that happened 5 years ago. And this also, I was looking at some stuff that are inversely proportional to the age decline. So I looked at processed food. Processed food was first invented or brought to the market in 1950 because some company overestimated how much turkeys they're going to need for Thanksgiving. So then they had to figure out what the hell to do with them.
Damn.
So they realized, hey, we could freeze it, and that's considered processed or whatever they added to it. I didn't look at the whole history. Is there something I read? So on the one hand, processed food was beneficial because I was reading another article saying that processed food allowed women to spend more or less time in the kitchen. And if you look at the history of women over times, their main role in life was to kind of be the childbearer, take care of the family, take care of the house, and then the man used to work, provide, and do all that, right? So on one hand, processed food did do some benefit because it freed up some more time for women to pursue other feats, other things, because it's easier to, let's say the rice example, it's easier to buy seasoned rice, pop it and boil it, and then that's your seasoned rice, right? And it tastes good and all that. Not the worst thing for you, just depending on what the ingredients are, right? Compared to cutting up all these vegetables you got put in, all these seasonings, and then making the rice and all that. It was quicker, so it saved you a few seconds, a few minutes, or whatever. But that compounded saves you a lot of time, right? And that allowed women to kind of pursue these different things because they had more time on their hands.
Yeah.
Because raising a household takes up a lot of fucking time. That's why I respect women that stay at home, is because if you're staying at home with three kids and running the house, you're fucking busy for more than 12 hours a day. You're busy all damn day. Maybe you have some free time when when the kids are at school. But guess what? When the kids are at school, you got to focus on cleaning the house because there's nobody running around. You got to focus things that you have to do now once no one's in the house, right? And then the kids come back and guess what? You're busy again. So it did a good thing. But then, like I said, with cigarettes, long-term wise, now processed food has shown to be more detrimental. And it's more detrimental over time because as processed food engineering moves forward, people make it easier to create these foods. They throw in more chemicals, more flavorings.
Make it cheaper.
All that jazz. And it just compounds into being worse and worse and worse over time. And that, I feel like, it's also being inversely proportional to our age.
Or decline in the health. Yeah.
Health, because 1950s, that's not a super long time, right? Even though the generation Y, so our generation is technically from the years 1981 to 1996, and our first processed food was available in the market in 1950s. Remember, that was our first processed food, right? Look how much the car has changed over 50 years. Drastically.
Yeah.
Same processed food. Look how much that has changed over years. So yes, people will be thinking, well, wouldn't Generation X be the unhealthiest because they were doing processed food? Yes, they're doing processed food, but it wasn't as processed as it is now. And as future moves on, the more processing it's going to be until someone says, hey, enough is enough.
Yeah. Right? Or they start removing, specific ingredients, like there's no MSG now, or hey, there's a label that says, oh, this is high fructose corn free. Oh, hey, this is gluten free. So, till the public question things and says this is bad for the health, that's when things started happening, But everything you described, it was just in the name of the profit, right? After 1950s, shit just got cheaper, and you're able to have higher profit margins, and you're able to feed more people. And now we're just seeing the repercussions. Right. But we're not going after the large corps, which is the problem, man. So
the number way for you to protest something that you don't like is to completely cut it off your life.
Be the change.
Because if I want to see less processed food, well, then guess what? I'm not going to buy the processed food, and I'm going to pay a little bit more for non-processed food. Why? Because then my dollars aren't going to the food company that's making this processed food. It's going to someone that's making this organic, right? They're not taking your dollar. Of course, you can put that in every situation because not all food you can do that, and depending on your location. But number one way you could protest these things is with your money. Don't give them the money. And then more of us don't buy these processed foods. Guess what? They're not gonna have reason to sell them because no one's buying it. Yeah. And they're gonna be like, hey, shit, our non-processed organic sausage is actually selling more than our processed non-organic sausage. Let's cut out this sausage, and people are going to pay more for this organic one But by the fact that they're saying that people are not buying the non-organic one, there's gonna be no point of them to make it anymore. And they're gonna make organic ones, and it might cost a little bit more, but guess what? Now you're paying a little more for it. It does suck, but guess what? You're gonna live longer technically than they have you for a longer period of time, right? Because if maybe people aren't seeing this the way I am from a marketing standpoint or from a corporation, if I could have somebody pay me more money for a better quality product, which is going to help them live longer over time, I'm gonna make more money off them in their lifetime than I will by selling a processed product that's going to hurt them in the long term and make them die quicker. Right?
Technically.
In theory, I don't know if people aren't seeing this or what the fuck's going on. But
Yeah, but you got to realize there's 7 billion people to feed. So for them, it's just a numbers game, dude. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, that just shows you we have a numbers game too. Stop buying the processed shit and then cop up some more money for this organic, better stuff, or just stop eating those chips and buy some fruits, because they look at numbers, right? And then we're the numbers that they look at. So if we change our numbers around, then we're the ones that could ultimately push for this change.
Yes. I mean, just like imagine if we had like 50 million listeners and they tell all their friends to stop buying Oreos because it causes whatever. Like imagine if we did it day on, day out, like Oreos maybe will just decrease in price or stop popping up in shops so much because no one is purchasing them, right? It's supply and demand. Yeah. Unfortunately, there's just a supply in processed foods because you see it in your commercials. It is advertised as snacks for the barbecue, snacks for the pool, snacks for the picnic, snacks for any part of your life.
And you got a nice model eating the bag of chips that's with her, runaway model physique. It's like, yeah, she's, chips for the commercial, but guess what? She ain't fucking eating them again,
Yeah, so it's like it's all about marketing at the end of the day. And the people that have the money are doing this, and that's marketing. And that's why it's still prevalent. And that's why you're still buying Cheetos and everything else. But, devil's advocate here, I consume stuff for myself sometimes. We're all human, but moderation is key. And, of course, decreasing so people don't purchase it.
Yes, that's a key concept in moderation. People don't understand that if you eat a very healthy diet and you eat those chips, you have the dessert, you go out to get ice cream, that's not going to do anything to your body. Your body's going to process it, eat it up, consume it, and that's it. Because you're so healthy. It's like always having fresh oil in a car. Right, that's why we do give car oil change, right? Because all that gunk, and then you lose a little bit of oil, all that gunk gets built up, and then you got new oil, right? And if you food for us is like oil to the car. It lubricates things, it makes everything run smooth, right? And imagine if you get an oil change every week instead of every X amount of miles, it'll be even smoother and even smoother.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what you're doing with diet. The healthier you eat, and the longer you eat healthy, the more shitty food you can introduce to your body that aren't going to do any kind of damage, because your body's that efficient at cleaning shit up is that you can eat to have a bag of fucking Flamin' Hot Cheetos and it's not gonna even phase you. It might make your stomach upset, but technically you didn't really do any harm to your body because tomorrow you're not gonna eat the hot Cheetos again. You're gonna be good for the rest of the week, right? So that's the thing about moderation is you could cheat, you could eat these processed foods, but don't eat a lot of them.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
There's the one doctor I don't know his name.
People make it harder than it has to be. Matt and I, we snack a lot. We snack all the time. Not as much as most people, but we have our snacks. Like I just bought Flamin' Hot Cheetos, right? We just went out for ice cream a few days ago, right? So it's not that, it's just a moderation. Me and Matt don't go out for ice cream every day. We don't have these same shitty snacks every day. And guess what? Yeah, we have snacks, but we do it in moderation where it doesn't really phase us. And plus, we go to the gym, we go to work out. So if we burn any kind of if we consume any kind of extra calories, guess what? They're being burnt anyways.
Yeah, and I like how this doctor once said it, that disease, your body, based on whatever you consume, you're either moving towards disease or towards the healthy life. And that's based on every single choice you make every single day. It all matters. I'm going to go over the results really quick from this study because we're already like over 50 minutes and I didn't even read them off. So I'm just going to give you a big abstract of what's going on when it comes to declining in health, what the study revealed based on all these surveys they took up. So there's a higher increase of white men groups when it comes to metabolic syndrome, while African Americans, Black people, they have the steepest increase in low urinary albumin, which is a marker for chronic inflammation and also an early indicator of kidney disease. Makes sense because we always talk about how African Americans are more prone to getting kidney disease. When it comes to whites, they have a distinctive increase in anxiety, depression, heavy drinking compared to African Americans and Hispanics, which don't really show as much increase in drugs and smoking. But smoking is not a responsible cohort for all this that we're talking about. It's just indicators that they noticed. When it comes to obesity, that's been increased in the metabolic syndrome, but doesn't correlate with low urinary albumin. So obesity is linked to death, of course, and worsening decline in health, but it's not necessarily an indicator of early kidney disease. And then also, yeah, I feel like whites, even though we're talking about systemic racism and stuff all the time in these topics, it seems like whites are mostly affected by this. They tend to be technically less healthier in the other categories than African Americans and Hispanics. But one thing is interesting is like for Spanish people, even since the baby boomers, there has been an continuous increase in street drug usage compared to whites and African Americans.
Yeah, I mean, street drugs play a big role. And now I'm kind of curious how marijuana is going to play a role in obesity when you think about it. Because it does have...
Damn munchies.
Yeah, if it has, we all know the benefits of marijuana and CBD and all that, but not everybody uses it for that reason, right? A lot of people use it recreationally and all that. And I wonder how it's going to play a role in obesity and if we're going to get fatter as the years go on. But, I mean, we'll see. I was going to say one point, but I just forgot what it is.
That's cool, man. I think we could wrap it up here. 50 minutes in, ladies and gents. Hopefully.
I was going to say that,
let's go.
Here at a couple nurses, like, we preach all this healthy lifestyle, this longevity. We have everyone's best interest in mind. When Matt and I talk, and everybody here at a couple nurses, when we talk, and the way we do things is it's all for one purpose, just trying to make each and every one of you a better version of themselves. Right? We're just trying to give you these ideas, these concepts, and these ways you could change your life, or maybe different kind of ideas or values that you haven't thought about in certain ways. And that's why that's why we podcast, that's why we do all this, and that's what we enjoy doing. Because Matt and I, we weren't born with this knowledge. We've heard this knowledge from somewhere else, and over time, right? We talked to people, and over time, we did the research, and we found these things to be helpful in our lives. So if it's helpful if Matt wants something to be helpful in Matt's life, he lets me know. And if it's helpful in my life, then imagine who else's lives it could be helpful with, right? Because if it helps two people and we just thought of this one concept, or we did some research and it helped us, imagine, how much it could help everybody else.
Yes.
And the key thing is communication. Like, if you're doing something healthy, or you're doing something that you enjoy, that you've seen to help better your lives, you guys should also put that out there into the world. Because if it helps change your lives, there's going to be thousands and potentially millions of people that are going to be just as changed by it as you.
Yes. So if you guys enjoyed this episode and it helped you tremendously, or if you learned something, please share it. That helps us and helps anybody else that's listening. Like, we always have great intentions on this show. We're always trying to, just like Pete said, increase your well-being, whether it's, new facts, having new guests on, and everything that we do. It's all about raising Earth's vibrational frequency. That's how I'd put it. And to wrap up the show, we talked about a study from the University of California, talked about green tea and all teas, how they decrease blood pressure based on this mechanism of action from the KCNQ5. And we talked about the health decline in Generation X and Y, and maybe why it's happening.
Yep. Good summary, guys. Thank you for tuning in. See you guys next week, or in a couple of days, or whenever.
Don't forget, 4:30, save the date.
Yep. So, guys.